All right, so it's been a hot minute since I've actually made a video, and this one I just want to cover wildlife photography and why I believe it's been the most difficult, or at least for me, it's been the most difficult. I just want to start off with saying, with wildlife photography, you have to be extremely committed to looking for the animal that you want and have a lot of patience. And at first, I maybe thought, I'm just gonna buy a giant lens and I'll drive around the back roads and I'll find something and hopefully get lucky. But it's been I figured that out right away that that's not how it works at all. And a lot of the time you actually have to study animals' behaviors or study what kind of habitat they live in, what time of day they come out, what they like to eat and stuff like that. What do they hunt? It's just so much that goes into it, and it's for me. I feel like if for me it's been almost like if I'm gonna do wildlife, I want to get familiar with what I'm shooting and not just photograph it and say I have this awesome photo of a great gray owl. So there's for example, there's a birding area in northern Minnesota called the Sax-Zim Bog, and it's known for great gray owls. Prior to, I think I went there one time, or I don't know if it was the first. I think it was the first time I went there. Yeah, okay, it was the first time. Now that I'm thinking of it, I had driven around. I want to say for about 6 hours around the bog by myself, and I was about on 20 minutes of sleep that night. We got skunked for sunrise, but regardless, um, yeah. So I was driving around about 6 hours, and I actually ended up getting lost because there I lost signal up there, and I didn't know where I was, and I didn't know the roads too well. All the roads are dirt roads besides the main roads up there. But around the bog, it's all dirt roads, and this is winter time. But so I'm driving around about 6 hours, and I end up meeting up with I meet up with this guy at the welcome center, and I just tell him like, man, like it's so hard to find owls or just anything in general, and he's like, yeah, you have to come at the right time of day, and he knew people that have been there, going there for about 5 years, and they hadn't seen a great gray owl after being there multiple times in 5 years. And we ended up encountering a great gray owl, and it had been probably when it landed on the tree about, I want to say about 20 feet from me. And with the 600 millimeter, it was just like, I think it's still my favorite owl or wildlife photo that I have to date. But it just like driving around for 6 hours, it was so frustrating. And I thought, like, just before that happened, I thought I had saw there was like a deer carcass, and I saw something really far away dragging it into the woods, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a wolf. And I started taking pictures of it, punched in, and once I actually zoomed in on the shot, it was just a dog. And like I don't know whose dog it was or whatever, but just that, for example, it's just like it's so frustrating because you had to get so almost, you don't want to get too close to the animals. But for example, after that happened, uh, the owl encounter and stuff like that, I had put up a marker on my phone that this is where I found the owl. And the next time I had gone back to that same spot, I encountered another great gray owl about 30 feet away from where I found the first one. So I tend to believe it's the same owl. And I was by myself that time, and I was probably driving around the bog for about 3 hours, and I didn't see a single thing at all besides some, I don't know, just like squirrels and stuff like that. And it just got really frustrating. But I was like, you know what? I should probably check that road that I found the great gray owl on. And literally, I knew that if I didn't find anything after searching that road, I was gonna go home. And I turned onto the road, and not even 10 seconds onto the road, I looked to my left, and I just saw the owl staring right at me, and that just made the experience like it's unexplainable to be in that environment with the great gray owl by yourself, and just watching it hunt and stuff like that. It's something that you can't really put into words. But for example, another example, so that's finding an owl and knowing the spot. And I think it's very important to not just share locations with people. because I, for one, spent many hours trying to find owls, and I'm just not gonna just give away a spot because someone wants to go photograph a great gray owl. I think it's very important, if you're gonna jump into wildlife, you do the work and try to uh, do some research and have trial and error just like I did. But obviously, some people aren't gonna think that's right. But I don't really care. For example, I haven't found a moose ever, and I've been going to the Gunflint Trail multiple times. I've gone on the Sawbill Trail. Have never actually encountered a moose in Minnesota once, and it's extremely frustrating because uh, those roads or just that area from where I live is about 5 hours. So I go up there extremely motivated to go get a moose or something like that, but I come back with nothing, and it's just sometimes I'm like, why did I just waste my whole day off driving 5 hours to get there? Spent 5 hours looking for an animal, and then 5 hours to get back home, and it's just it can really wear you down, especially in the long run, mentally, when you're doing this stuff. But you know, there is someone from Grand Marais that I think does a really good job at finding moose, and that's Katie Mum. And shout out to her because she gets really good moose content and stuff like that, foxes. And I'm assuming she's gotten messages also like, hey, where do you find moose? Like, she's not gonna want to give a location away like that because she's always posting on her story that she is going there like very early in the morning or sunset or something. And even I know she had an accident, like broke her leg and stuff like that, and I'm glad she's doing a lot better now. But even through her not being able to walk and like on crutches, she was still going out there and doing what she loves to do and not letting that affect her from finding the animals. And I think that was really cool. Um, yeah, so, and then for me, like finding a bear has always been like on the top of my wildlife like to-do list, I guess. But also, those have been extremely hard to find. I've never seen a bear in Minnesota at all when I go up north or anything like that. And I took a trip in June to Washington. My friend Nick picked me up from the airport, not even 35 minutes from the airport. We found a mama black bear and her bear cub. And that was like they were just off the side of the road, and we kept our distance, and we got amazing photos of black bear, and that was like just an unbelievable experience because I had been waiting so long, but I wasn't prepared for that to happen on the first day of the trip. And it just like, for me, just set up the whole trip. Like, for me, I could have just gone home after that and been super content with just those bear photos because um, I enjoy doing wildlife so much. But when I go out on all my, like, if I've gone out on my days off and I drive 2 hours, 3 hours, and I don't get anything, then I just feel like I wasted my day off with zero photos, coming back with zero photos. But when you have experiences like that, when sometimes you're just like, I wouldn't say you get lucky, so that's what I mean by doing your research and stuff like that. I know a spot for like barred owls where in Washington, I ended up finding a spot for barred owls, and we went back the next day, and we had uh, I think the best owl encounter I've ever had, even compared to the great gray owl. But the great gray owl is still gonna sit on the top of the list because they're way harder to find. But we found owlets and we found the parents, and we got a lot of photos of those owls, and it was just an incredible experience to watch them hunt. We literally saw it was either the mom or the dad owl like swoop into the creek next to us, started splashing around, and it took out a crawfish, landed on a rock just across the little creek. And that didn't feel like it was real because when it was splashing in the water, its wingspan was so wide, and it just felt like it didn't feel real. And so knowing that I can go back to Washington and hopefully those owls are still in the area, that's nice. And there's also I just have so many, like, I have spots where I have an idea that I can get photos there, and I've gotten photos there, but it's not guaranteed that the wildlife's gonna um, be there every time you go. But yeah, I just think that's my opinion on wildlife photography. Like those are just some examples of like it's not gonna be as easy as it seems, or you're just not gonna go every time and get photos and come back. But if you have the time, I would definitely try it out. And if you have the budget, definitely get a nice lens. There's nicer lenses than this, but I think the Sony 200 to 600 has been like it's treated me so well and gotten me so many great photos. And Tamron has a 150 to 500, Sigma has a 100 to 400, and there's a lot of options out there. But do keep in mind that the extra 200 millimeters does make a giant difference. And obviously, if you're gonna look for animals, just try to remember that if the animal is changing its behavior because of you, then you should probably leave, because that's not what you want to do when you're shooting wildlife. You don't want to change animals' behavior just to get a good photo. So I'd recommend that just do your research on the animals and study behavior on how they are. And if you're not bothering it, shoot away. And if you are, then obviously don't do that. But yeah, that's just my opinion on wildlife photography, and hope you enjoyed this video and I guess some of the stories I just shared. And I'll be making more content soon. It's just been kind of difficult, and been really difficult shooting this summer and staying motivated, but I've been skateboarding a lot. So yeah, thank you very much.